This is The Bridge to Adulthood in Bridge to Terabithia. My name is Scott Martin Rowe. Bridge to Terabithia was written by Catherine Patterson and published in 1977. It is a middle grade YA novel. It was originally published by Thomas Crow Publishers. Now that publishing company has been absorbed by HarperCollins. Um, it won the Newbery Award in 1978, which is a big deal. This book is often the target of book censors. They take great offense to some of the language in the book, and that one of the characters, Leslie, her parents are kind of secular humanists. At the same time, this book's been translated into multiple languages and is often mentioned as one of the best children's books of all time. So just a quick overview of the plot here. So Jess, referred to Jess and Jesse, is going into the fifth grade. He lives in a rural part of what I believe to be Virginia. He's got two older sisters, two younger sisters, a mother and a father. His family's part of the working poor. He's planning all summer to be the fastest boy in the fifth grade, so he's spending his entire summer getting up and running. Um, Shortly before school starts, a family moves into a house down the road. Turns out there's this girl that lives there, and she tries to make some talk with Jess, but he's not really into it. Flash forward to first day of school, and this girl Leslie, who lives down the road, is in his class. And at lunchtime, the first recess of the first day of the new school year, all the boys go out to race. And this is time for Jess to show that he is now the fastest kid. And instead, Leslie wins all of the races and is faster than any of the boys. So that kind of throws Jess off quite a bit. But in pretty short time, Jess and Leslie start to kind of build a friendship together. And that friendship grows, and they go to school together, and they ride the bus together. After some reluctance by Jess, they create this whole world for themselves in the forest. They call it Terabithia, and to get to it, you have to cross a river with this rope swing. And over there, they are the king and queen of Terabithia. And the story keeps progressing forward. There's some rivalries at school that we see the way that Leslie handles those rivalries, and it helps kind of Jess see people in a different way. A teacher at the school, Miss Edmonds, the music teacher, kind of takes a liking to Jesse, and she invites him to the museum, one of the museums in Washington D.C. So Jess goes with her to Washington D.C. and when he gets home, he finds out that some tragedy has happened, and kind of everything in Jess's life is kind of thrown into turmoil. I highly recommend you read the book. As we move forward, some plot points are going to ruin parts of the story. So if you don't want to have the story ruined, I would stop listening right now, go read the book, and then come back. So the first major scene I want to focus on is the race scene, and this is where Jesse's worked all summer to be the fastest kid in the fifth grade. So usually at recess time, the boys and the girls play separately. So it's a big deal that Leslie comes over and runs these races with the boys. And initially, I mean, it's a big deal that she just went over there. It becomes an even bigger deal that she wins. And it kind of throws everything out, kind of the social, the recess structure. The boys start playing something different, and kind of everything Jess had been working on for the summer is messed up. And this scene, I think it's important because it highlights Leslie's kind of the disruptive nature, the disruptive qualities she's going to have in Jesse's life, in a good way. Just being the fastest kid in the fifth grade is not much to strive for. And she disrupts that, and it gets broken, but it becomes, because that's broken, it gets to be something else. It also kind of shows how Leslie, throughout this book, is going to challenge gender roles and gender stereotypes. She is, I think, what we call a tomboy. She wears pants. She's kind of rough and tumble. And this scene is really just kind of giving us all of that at the get go. It's a really great way to set it up. The second scene I want to focus on is the scene where Jess's music teacher, Miss Edmonds, calls him and invites him to go to the museum with her in Washington, D.C. And Jess really loves to draw, and it's something that his family doesn't really support him at all. His older sisters kind of ridicule him for it. Leslie, uh, you know, gives him support, but he's very shy about it. And here his teacher takes him to the museum, and I think for the first time he's really talked to as someone with ideas and thoughts, and he gets to see all this amazing art, and she buys him a really great lunch, and he just has an amazing time. He also has a crush on her, so it's good in that way as well too. Um, One of the things that happens early on in this scene is when they're driving away, just after they get out of town. Jess realizes, I should have asked Leslie if she wanted to go, and we could have stopped by her house, but he doesn't. And one thing he says in the book is that he couldn't suppress a secret pleasure at being alone in this small, cozy car with Miss Edmonds. And so they go without Leslie. And when he gets home is when he learns that this tragedy has occurred because Leslie decided to go to Terabithia by herself, and kind of his whole world will be shattered. And this day is there are the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and this is just this leads right into the most crucial point in the story. So one of the major themes I want to point to in this book is that of sibling rivalries. Jessie has two older sisters, Brenda and Ellie, and they're really similar to the stepsisters in Cinderella. They're really critical about Jessie. They really only care about themselves, their own needs, how they look. They want more than what they're given. When they're on the page, they dominate the story, and Jesse just kind of fades away, and you would imagine that that's just kind of how he lives, and he's always kind of just cowering back from them. He also has two younger sisters. The older of the two younger sisters, Maybelle, she looks up to Jesse a lot. She wants to be around him and Leslie as much as she can. The youngest one is really young and doesn't play too much of a role in the book, but Maybelle, contrary to the older sisters, likes Jesse and wants his approval. In the scene where Miss Edmonds calls Jesse to go to Washington with her, Maybelle, the younger sister, is the one who actually answers the phone and tells Jesse, "I think it's Miss Edmonds." And because of that, because he even gets the phone call, he's able to go. Had one of his older sisters answered the phone, she probably would have teased him, gone to tell the mom, make sure she knew, oh, he's trying to go with this teacher, da 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 da. And there's good and bad there. One, had Maybelle not answered the phone and one of the older sisters answered the phone, Jesse wouldn't have gone, which means that Leslie wouldn't have gone to Terabithia alone, which means this tragedy that occurs wouldn't have happened. So, he goes, he has an amazing experience, but this tragedy occurs. If he stays, he doesn't get that experience, but this tragedy possibly doesn't occur. It's also interesting, too, is that he's got all of this sibling rivalry, Jess does, but on the other side, you have Leslie, and she's an only child. She's got the full attention of her parents. She's got no sibling rivalry to contend with. So it's really interesting. You've got these two families, and I think in 1977, a challenge to the having 3-4 children in your family. You've got this only child with these artistic parents, and it's really kind of challenging the status quo of the time. And, maybe siblings aren't all that important. Another theme is absent parents. So Jesse's mother in the story is largely when she's on the page, she's reminding him to milk the cow. She's arguing with the older sisters. There's not much interaction, meaningful interaction. His father leaves early in the morning to go work, and he gets home late. When he's around on the weekends, he's falling asleep in front of the television. So his parents are pretty much emotionally unavailable to him throughout the story. Even after this tragedy with Leslie, after she has died. See, I warned you. You should have stopped if you haven't read it. But after Leslie dies, um, the narrator notes that when Jess goes running off to Leslie's house, and his dad follows him in his pickup truck, and eventually, gets Jess into the truck, and the narrator notes that Jess could feel the man's uncertainty. She's just not there, and even in this moment, he's not able to just be present with his son. And this is really contrasted by how involved Leslie's parents are in her life. She calls them Bill and Judy, and not mom and dad. And there's this one portion of the book where Leslie's spending a lot of time with her dad. They're painting, they're doing all these things around the house, and Jesse's really jealous of that relationship, that Bill is spending all this time with her. And eventually, Jesse just joins right in, but he doesn't know to do that. Because he hasn't experienced that with a parent, because his parents really have been so absent from his life. The third theme I want to talk about is kind of how Jesse goes through this hero's journey in the text, and you kind of have to fit this into the journey. But if you think about it as known world, going from your known world to your unknown world, and then kind of returning to the known world, but as a changed person, there's this call to adventure where Leslie beats all of the boys in the foot race, and it's this disruption, it's this awakening for Jess. And out of that, kind of Leslie enters into his life. And she, in a lot of ways, becomes his mentor. She is kind of showing him the way to be and how to interact with the world. There's situations that they go through. There's one with kind of the school bully. And they play this trick on her where they write a fake love letter from the most popular boy in school to her, and she thinks it's real, and she tells her friends, and it turns out it's not. And then people go spreading rumors around about, not spreading rumors, but kind of dishing the family dirt around her about school. And Jess is like, "Oh, we got her," and Leslie's like, "You know what? We should check in on her." And so she acts as his mentor and helps him kind of navigate some of these situations. And so this whole unknown world for Jess is kind of his friendship with Leslie. It's not Terabithia. Terabithia is this kind of created world, but really this unknown world is everything that he's experiencing with Leslie, and this whole road of trials, these family relationships, the school rivalries, his own hang-ups about being poor. At Christmas, he wants to get her something really great, and she's gotten him these paints and the special papers to paint with, and he just doesn't know what to get her, and he ends up getting her a puppy, and she thinks it's amazing. And then we have this moment where he goes to Washington and he gets all of this information. He's like, just all this information about art and this these powerful moments for him of just staring at art and talking to somebody about art and something that he is so passionate about but really has no true outlet for or anyone else to talk to about. He finally gets it. um, but when he comes back, home and finds out that Leslie's died, it's it breaks him. But at the same time, it's because now Leslie's gone, he's gonna kind of leave that unknown world and return to the known world, but changed. And at some point he's going to really accept Leslie's death. It kind of seems to happen at the end. He gets this gift from Bill. Leslie's dad gives him her paints and these like real watercolor papers, and so there's this this knowledge that Jesse's going to he's different. He's gone through this whole experience and he's come out the other side, and he's now someone else. He is, he has the freedom to live the life that he wants, and uh, and to be the person that he wants to be. Some lessons in this about that can be taken from this book. One is that gender roles are pretty much constructs; they're not fixed, and Leslie really challenges those gender roles nicely in the story, and it's not so overt that she's saying boys can't or girls can't do this, but boys can, or anything like that. She just kind of does, and she just kind of is. And I think it's a really beautiful way of challenging those gender norms, is to have a character that just doesn't really abide by them and does what she wants. Another lesson is that you read about the characters in this book, and though they are fiction, um, there should be a recognition that there's a whole inner life in a child's mind that needs to be nurtured. There's things they're thinking about, and that the sooner that we can do that, the sooner that we can connect with kids and find out what they're thinking about and what they're passionate about and what they want, what they see for themselves, the better. Jess doesn't get that until Leslie shows up in his life, and I think moving forward, he's going to demand that out of the people in his life, and he may not get it out of his parents, but I think he's going to seek it out. I think another part of this is because Leslie's life is so short. She, you don't. I mean, it's sad in that she doesn't live. She's such an intriguing character and seems like such a wonderful young woman. But there's also like, how long are you going to wait to start living the way you want? Had Jesse died in the book, part of it would have been sad because Jesse hadn't really figured out who he was and hadn't even started down the road that he wanted to go down. Whereas in Leslie, it was seemed really fully formed, and not to say that her death is any less tragic, but she had lived more than Jess had lived at that point. And so I think the book in some ways is saying, live the way you want to live now, because we don't know when the rope will break, when the car will slide off of the road, when a pandemic will hit. And finally, I'm kidding kind of on this one, but I think it's an interesting point that, Leslie's parents, and Leslie herself, and Miss Edmonds are really interesting people, and they seem to enjoy their life, and they're very much involved in the arts. And Jess's parents are not. They're just living paycheck to paycheck, and some of that is because that's what they need to do. But at the same time, it's not hard to listen to music. It's not hard to appreciate art. It's not hard to be artistic and to just express yourself through the arts. And it seems this book is also arguing that these people who are experiencing the arts are living a more fulfilling life, even though their daughter dies. they are living a more fulfilling life. Now, Bridge to Terabithia has been made into two movie adaptations. There's been a musical that I saw a reference to on the internet somewhere, and I saw that it had been done at different theaters and whatnot around the country. I'm not sure if there's a standard adaptation of that or not. I couldn't find one, but it has been adapted. Gabor Guspo's Suppo's 2007 film adaptation is done by Walt Disney. Took a lot of liberties within the realm of Terabithia. Terabithia itself becomes a huge part of the movie, whereas in the book, I mean, it's part of it, but it's really about the relationship. Whereas in this movie, I mean, the world of Terabithia is a character itself. It's enormous. It's huge. There's all these different characters. There's the Terabithians. There's just tons of different characters there. And personally, I think it takes away a lot from the original text. I understand why it happened, because this book is kind of, it's not ornate, it's not a high concept, which is what a lot of YA books are these days. These high concept things, but it's a very quiet and somewhat slow, I'll say, book, but beautiful, I think. And I'd never read it before, and seeing how the movie was changed so much kind of made me sad. I would love to see a movie version of this book done in more in line with what the book is about, and just about the relationship and not about the flash and the characters of Terabithia. So thank you very much for watching this, and I really do hope that you go out and read Bridge to Terabithia. I had never read this book before, and I am so glad that I did, because I just think it's wonderful and really just a treasure.